Hey everybody, thank you for pulling into the Palmetto Pit Stop. I am Tony here with Adam, and we are now getting past Bowman Gray Racing. We had the clash up in Winston-Salem, and luckily had the opportunity to be in attendance for the historic race. It was such a great scene up there. Really nice to actually get up to Winston-Salem for the first time, to be right up there. We were in the second row, and with such a small track, the sounds, the sights, the smells of the rubber, even getting hit with little pieces of rubber. It was incredible, and to be able to see just some of our favorite drivers again up that close, to see some crashes, it really was a bit surreal and just a great start to the NASCAR season. As now we have the Daytona 500 in our sights. But before we get to more of that, this is going to be a separate preview that we have getting after Super Bowl Sunday. So that's going to be coming up here on the Palmetto Pit Stop. But right now, we just want to give a quick recap on our experience, things we saw with this track, and just some things that stood out to us. But Adam, it really was great to see, and I'm excited to be able to sift through some of the great footage that we got. But just to be up close and personal to some of these cars, not too much in between us and the track, and just getting some of that excitement to build for this upcoming season. Great way to kick it off.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a better track to start at, except maybe Daytona, but that's a separate conversation.
Of course.
But I think NASCAR going back to its roots, finally listening to fans who wanted some race outside of just Darlington and Charlotte in the Carolinas. We're getting closer to bringing back Rockingham, so more racing in the Carolinas where racing started. It's going to be great. It looks great for the future of the sport in terms of more of these smaller, more intimate tracks, more historic tracks, North Wilkesboro as well. But Bowman Gray, only ever hearing the stories from fans and videos on social media, that track earned the nickname the Madhouse, and we saw it in person. I mean, that the modified race that we caught when we first got there, the qualifiers, the heats, and of course the last chance qualifier, probably the best race of the weekend. It was a lot of fun, lived up to the hype in my opinion. I'm not sure how it looked on television. I didn't really get a chance to look at it, but I think it was worth every penny. I think it was a smart decision. Where the sport goes from here, I don't know if they'll keep going to Bowman Gray or they're going to try to bounce around a little. But I think Bowman Gray earned a race weekend. This car and that tire, which we were getting pelted with once in a while, sitting second row. But I think they've earned at least some consideration for a points-paying weekend.
That would be incredible. I would love to see that type of atmosphere, that actually being on the line, whether it is a spot in the playoff or just, winning a normal race, whatever goes on with NASCAR in the future. I don't know if there is going to be an eventual change in the format, how things are settled right now, how we go into the future, but either way you slice it, for a race that counts, and to be able to compress it down to something like Bowman Gray, that would be awesome. You'd have to have a little bit more of eyeballs on TV because there's only so many seats in Bowman Gray, but to be able to have that opportunity to be so up close and personal, even though this is, of course, just a clash, it's not anything that will apply to the postseason or anything. You were essentially just racing for having your name down as winning this race. Obviously, the monetary prize as well, but if you can have that type of atmosphere and action for a race that doesn't count for the rest of the season, then hey, I would be all for that. And it was still a race that, even though it was in such a tight margin for error, not a lot of room for passing, there were still cars that were able to navigate their way through the field. There was still plenty of passing. There was some really good racing out there, and it ended up with Mr. Elliott taking the checkered flag at the end. It easily could have gone to a couple other drivers. I know Hamlin had a really good run, but just couldn't hold on there. And it definitely got to a point where if you were able to seize the lead and get just enough of a lead, and maybe even have a couple cars between you, I know that's something that happened too. It was easy to pass a couple of cars to give you a little bit of that buffer for someone else to pass you. And Elliott definitely used that to his advantage. He got the win. But it was still a great run from a lot of other drivers. I know Bubba Wallace had a nice run. Reddick did, but then he fell back a little bit. Bell fell back a little bit. So some more of our favorite drivers and a couple household names. Blaney had an incredible run from near the back of the pack all the way to the front. So overall, it was a pretty exciting race and just a good spectacle to see. I again really can't say enough good things about it, especially getting up there for the first time. So I'm happy we made that decision.
Yeah, Winston-Salem was a really fun city. I wish we had a little more time up there to really explore it. We never really got downtown. Just all of Sunday or all of Saturday we were at the race, and then Sunday for most of the day being in for the Cup race. Didn't really get to go downtown. The area though. A lot of fun, a lot of cool shops up there. We took Sunday morning when there wasn't racing at the track. We took some time to explore. Found a lot of cool stores. Got some new die-casts for a pretty low price from some mall.
Random
the $10 store.
$10 store.
Yeah, the guy was very nice. Got a. Well, let me see, what year is that? I think that's a 1999 Ken Schrader M&M's. And then a 2006 Kyle Petty. Very excited. I love those. I love the way those cars look. The Gen 4 cars, super beautiful. Probably the best looking car NASCAR ever had. Maybe outside of the Junior Johnson 70s cars. Those things look beautiful. But the Gen 4 cars especially, I love all the die casts of those. But area where we stayed, very nice, very close to a lot of things. The food was amazing in the area. We had a nice pizza up there, Brothers Pizza. Yeah,
there's another place that was closed that also still had incredible reviews. They I think a couple fractions of a star more than Brothers, so maybe a surprising little pizza hub. They said we didn't get to try as much as we wanted to. Just got a little food at the track, but hopefully if we get back up there, we can do a little bit more, maybe be able to take a little bit more video, but still excited to go through all we have. We were just trying to focus a little bit more on our first trip up there, on the experience from the racing standpoint and the action there. But, great to see from Winston-Salem as a city playing host to this race. And it still played out mostly, what we expected with a little bit more of that chaos. I just didn't really fully anticipate more of the format. I didn't fully understand the heats until you explained it a little bit better to me, how things were going to work for this. And just that added facet, having the entire race really being split up into a series of 2 days, it just made it all the more interesting, all the more enticing between the storylines, between rolling the cars out in those groups and having to qualify for next day. It's just an interesting little paradigm that you could throw into something that's not just one day race affair where you typically go through the motions. You have your trucks, you have Xfinity, and then you have, of course, the Cup Series race. But I really liked how this was, so just content with how things went. Obviously, neither of our drivers won, that we are personal fans of, but we could still just appreciate racing for what it is in general. And anything specific, between maybe the wrecks, between what we looked at up close, or we were able to analyze that you saw that maybe stood out to you from any particular driver.
Blaney's charge in the race itself was very impressive. Starting dead last and finishing third?
Second or third. It was incredible.
I think
getting up there.
I think that alone, while impressive, is boding well for the short tracks in this car, because that has been probably the biggest complaint of this next gen car, is that on short tracks it is pretty bad. We saw that with the we saw that in the second Bristol race where Kyle Larson won in the playoffs. It was just, there was no passing. Everyone was probably within a tenth of a second each lap of each other, so no one was really able to pull away. But at this track, everyone was able to either move someone out of the way, or we saw Hamlin sometimes go passing on the outside, which I didn't even think was possible on this track. And obviously the tire wear was really, really good. We've had physical evidence of that, getting a few pieces of rubber in our laps at points, and I made the mistake of on Saturday before the heats wearing a white sweater, and it was very quickly made dirty because of
Oh yeah.
all the rubber.
You look like I said, like looks like kind of like Oreo dust almost, but it's you can't just like brush it off your clothes.
No, yeah, that was it was a lot of fun though. But I think Blaney's charge to the front was great. Larson, I expect there was no way that race was happening, and Larson wasn't going to be a part of it. Very good, and I mean, just an impressive showing from Chase Elliott. I think he led like 150 laps or something like that. Just never wavered from the front. I was a little worried on Saturday because everyone on the pole stayed on the pole through the heats, and that made me a little worried. But once it got to that 23 car field and people were faster, but they were back and had to make their way up, that was when I really saw that this race was going to be good. And sure enough, a lot of beautiful cars too. Bubba Wallace's that white Columbia car, really nice.
Latest, what was it? Latos or something?
I think it was just Columbia, or it may have been Latos.
Latos, I
Sure.
think. With
I'll
the
have to
purple and
double check.
white.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the purple
It
and
was a
white.
nice car.
Yeah, very very beautiful. Of course, the unbannable car from Tyler Reddick, very
that
nice.
Who else was good? Bell. I was just
Christopher
mentioning,
Bell, yeah.
That mobile car is nice.
Yeah, that was every time we took a picture of that we could. Denny Hamlin now without FedEx officially, very sad to see. And now it seems he's racing like a national debt relief or something sponsor for the 500, and it's pretty evident that he's going to have a basic scheme format for his sponsors, which I kind of like. Helps add some identifiable features. That was one thing that's been kind of absent in NASCAR for a few years, and it's been a point of conversation for fans, is that there's no really iconic driver scheme pairings anymore.
No, yeah, we talked about that before. It's just not. It's just not that way anymore. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to that. I would love to be able to get back to that if there's some major shift in more attention that could be garnered by NASCAR, and that's only going to be better from a marketing standpoint. But it's just not there anymore. When you had that era where you're able to attribute anything Budweiser related to Dale Jr. or or Busch with the M&M's car. It was just those big brands that went hand in hand with certain drivers for such a long time. Maybe we'll get back to it at some point. We're just not there right now as much as NASCAR might want to be.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is the car itself is very expensive to make. It's very expensive to operate a team right now, which is kind of one of the things that Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan and that whole lawsuit are really pursuing, is to make these cars cheaper to produce, or at least able to be produced in-house for less of a cost. Because then we could see some sponsors return to the sport. I mean, we saw Budweiser, who hadn't been really present in the sport, come back and sponsor Dale Jr. at a late model race. So it would be really cool to see some sponsors come back. Obviously, losing a few big ones over the last few years with FedEx, M&M's, Lowe's, Home Depot hasn't been in the sport in a while.
See some maybe expansion with Red Bull.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shane Van Gisbergen
Yeah.
bringing Red Bull back into the sport.
That's right.
Of course, had that sponsor when he was racing supercars in Australia. And I never expected to see Red Bull back in the sport. Once they make that diecast, I'm probably going to have to shell out for it, just in case they spike in price again, like a Casey Kane diecast from like 2011 is like $400, $500. Very, very rare.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't doubt that.
But I would really love to see some sponsors come back. And I would also like to see some sponsors that have grown in the last few years maybe start to sponsor drivers. One being in particular Cookout. Seems like they are now everywhere as title sponsors in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because they're just so big in this region, the Carolinas and the South. So to have their hands a little bit more into NASCAR, aside from just of course the biggest race being the Cookout, the Southern 500. But yeah, to be able to latch onto a driver, maybe to be able to have them be a little bit more recognizable, to make appearances, to have that as a marketing ploy, would be a great example.
I could definitely see Cookout being a Joe Gibbs sponsor. Maybe Christopher Bell or Ty Gibbs or Danny Hamlin with a red Cookout car it would be really nice to see, maybe even for the Southern 500, have a Cookout car on Throwback Weekend. I know they're different races, but on Throwback Weekend, have a Cookout car, maybe throw back to one of Kyle Busch's M&M schemes, like his Skittles cars. Something like that would be really nice. But to the race itself, a lot of fun, really lived up to the hype. I think the fans thought so as well. Packed house. LED lights, which were really cool. I'd never seen that at a NASCAR race.
The show was great. Everything that they put on there had plenty of food options, plenty of beverage options, and just everyone all set up the way they were. It was still tough to get in and out because there's only so many entrances and exits, but the way that everyone was settled in there, a long time. Clearly, everyone was there, maybe not several hours, but a couple hours before even some of the action began. People were already starting to find their way to their seats. That just goes to show you a lot of the passion that is just still clearly here in the Carolinas for racing and for NASCAR, and that was just a great showing for it. And it was, they put on a show. It was a little bit, quieter. From the qualifiers that we watched, there was some action, especially the first one. Before we got to the main race on Sunday, the first heat was really fun to watch. Between a little bit more of the the bumping and pushing around, a couple wrecks here and there, some racing a little bit smoother. But overall, I'm content with the amount of action I got. It would have been great to see a little bit more, but obviously you don't want to see anybody putting more their lives more at risk or more damage to these cars. But it definitely got what we paid for. And whether it was into the main race or just drivers trying to get into it, it was just still nice to see the motivation for these guys to definitely take pride on this track and to still want to win, even though this is nothing that has anything to do with this year's postseason.
Yeah, I saw a joke tweet. I think it might be by what's that guy's name on Twitter? It's like NASCAR Chasm, I think his name is. He's a really funny dude, and he tweeted that he's very convinced that Bowman Gray was put on intentionally just to get people mad so that there's more heat during the 500, which, if that was the case, very smart idea. Obviously, Justin Haley and Kyle Busch got into it for a little bit.
They did, yeah.
That was interesting. That was a little vintage Rowdy coming out there, tailing him, a little bump draft after his spin. We saw two cars get airborne at that small track. That was very weird. Ty Gibbs going airborne. I think Josh Berry? No.
Was it Gragson?
Gragson. I think it was Gragson got a little airborne on one of those spins during the last chance qualifier.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good footage because the Gragson one happened right in front of us. We were sitting on the about the exit of turn 2, and obviously basically right on the fence. So we got some good views for the action. I think there were some drives that didn't go very appreciated. Ty Dillon, I noticed he was working his way up before he got into some trouble there, and then his car kind of fell off after a while. Kyle Larson, again, just didn't seem like he had it this weekend. Or that weekend. Just obviously not in during the heats. Was fighting with Cody Ware, I think, for position.
So, yeah.
And just not doing anything. Wins the last chance qualifier and obviously gets into the show, but just not really able to do anything from there.
No, not going up against the top drivers again. So I don't know. Just might.
But probably a week off. Just not really. No real reason to push it that hard for a non-points race.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe he just didn't feel as motivated as some other drivers, because I don't know what goes through the heads of these drivers all the time, especially for races like the Clash, for one that has nothing to do or have ramifications for the end of the season. And maybe some guys see that differently. They're just like, hey, I'm here. If I have a good day, all right. If it seems like it's not going that great, then I'm not going to push it. And that might have been what happened with Larson. So we'll see if this has any lingering effects as we go through the next few weeks.
Yeah, it did seem like there were some guys who treated this much differently than they would an actual race. I feel like Denny Hamlin, Elliott, Reddick, they were out there to win very clearly. And we saw that with Elliott, especially towards the end. He just started shoving people out of the way. And, I mean, you have to at a track like that. That's how you pass. But guys like Van Gisbergen and Wallace, I feel, were just trying to just see what they could do at the track. And Bubba Wallace was close to the action most of the time, but left one of the few cars unscathed after that whole thing. Shane Van Gisbergen also notoriously a road course ringer, but very good performance on the short track that I don't even think he'd heard of it. I think I saw somewhere that he had to watch some YouTube videos to find out what the significance of Bowman Gray. And he's like, I just see people crashing into each other and getting into fights, and he's a little scared about it. But
he was probably getting bored out there.
Yeah, he's like, man,
just more
left turns. This is
fast
lame.
And left, even shorter. I was like, I need some right turns.
Rights, yeah.
It's like, so that's the way that all played out. And a lot of these races went, as we would expect them to. A lot of people content where they were with their position, staying in line. Some people during the qualifiers and heats didn't really seem to have the want to really,
Ryan Blaney just gave up in the last chance one. He's like, I'm locked in. I'm not getting involved.
Exactly.
He would lean back on the restarts, and after a few crashes, he's like, I'm good, and he just retired. So, very clearly, there were some drivers that were playing it much differently, but still, Chase Elliott, just dominant performance. I thought at some point, I really thought that Hamilton was going to get to him, but once he fell to third, I think, or got past, and it was the Elliott show, and then Blaney tried to run him down, but obviously without dive bombing him on those final turns, it wouldn't have really worked out. So still very good, very fun race, very fun weekend. Nothing I could really think to improve what they did. I would love to see more cars on track, but obviously with a quarter mile, you can only have I think 23 might be your limit.
I mean, the only thing just going forward with that, I mean, maybe you could add more, is just going to be how you would have to try and analyze that. What went on with the clash? It's easier because it didn't have any ramifications for the postseason, but to what this could be as a points race, and that would be a great thing to see, just to have that heightened sense of what a win could do for you at this track. And I just think it would play into a little bit more of what would be making it into a Madhouse, because hey, whatever this means, or what winning this race would mean at that standpoint, with this race not just being the clash, that would be amazing. And what that would be something that would be even more, just a little bit more with that heightened sense that would make it even more entertaining for people, because you would get a lot more action on the track. You would have these guys being, I think, a little bit more daring, more bumping up there, more trying to fight for that position. So that's just the main takeaway as we went through this, as we did. Looking into the future, I'm truly hopeful that this could be a points race at some point, but otherwise, really no complaints from me for what this race was, what we got out of it. Elliott again getting that win, and just a little appetizer for us as we keep Daytona in our sights, and as we go through all this footage, looking forward to slapping something together. Hopefully we'll have something really good for y'all on our YouTube page as we get you this Bowman Gray footage, and that'll also serve as a precursor to hopefully more races we're able to go and gather footage, and maybe even eventually work in some interviews at some time. The sky's the limit for that. We were happy to yet again be so up close and personal, and I hope this is going to be something that could be entertaining and informative for y'all as we get it all together.
Yeah, I really enjoyed what this race was and what it kind of means for the sport, going back to its roots. I think if they did do a points race, it's obviously not built for your traditional NASCAR race with 40 cars and, pit strategy and all that. I think it would operate very similarly to how the Dirt Bristol race was, where it was like everyone's basically on the same pit schedule, because the way they had to go off the track was around that I think it was called the barn or something, or the barn house or whatever.
Okay.
They had to go behind there, and just one lane around that would basically put you 2 laps down. So I think you just have to have mandated pit stops, every 200 laps or whatever, or 150 laps, however long. And then I don't know if you're even fitting 40 cars on that field in the first place, because people were getting lapped in 10 laps with 23. So it would be interesting. I don't know if that would ever happen. It would be fun to see, it would definitely be like a sort of gimmick race, because Bowman Gray, this clash is a gimmick, and that's not always a bad thing. You know, people call certain things gimmicks in the sport as a bad thing. You know, they say the stage cautions are a gimmick, the playoffs are a gimmick, it's this or that. But, you know, for non-points race, I don't see why not do gimmicks, make it a little more fun, like how we saw, obviously, at the Clash. I would personally like to see, if I could have a perfect world, I would do I would bring back Speed Weeks for Daytona, put the Clash back at the Super Speedway, give North Wilkes-Barre a points-paying race, because that can clearly handle 40 cars. They've done so in the past, and put Bowman Gray as the all-star race. And I think that would be a good setup. And then eventually, you know, bring Rockingham if they do well for the Xfinity and trucks this year. And I think this is a really good time for NASCAR. In the early 2000s, the schedule was really gridlocked. You know, nothing really left. Nothing really came. They were like on the verge of leaving Darlington for a little bit. They did leave the Rock. But other than a track being taken off the schedule entirely, they didn't really experiment like they are now. And now, you know, we have insane diversity on this schedule. So you have the Clash, obviously at Bowman Gray this year. North Wilkes-Barre, a historic track, another historic track brought back. The Chicago Road Course we were talking about before we started recording. What else? We have so many tracks that they've just added in. And Mexico City this year.
Yeah, another big new one.
Yeah, and just a bunch of road courses too. And once they figure out how to get this car really rolling on road courses, I think it's finally going to be the car that people want to see again, because we saw last year the mile and a halves were really good. Super speedways were kind of a give or take. The night Daytona race was probably the best race of the season last year. So the car has potential, but it's far from perfect.
It is, but it's something that can be fine-tuned as we get further and further into the season. We'll see what, if any, changes are made and how we're actually going to be seeing this field come together, the playoff format come together again as races now start to count. And, it is all about Daytona. That is going to be a big preview that we will have coming up next week, again after the Super Bowl. But one more reminder again, content with everything that we saw up at Winston-Salem. And please continue to keep eyeballs on our YouTube page as we get together some of that incredible footage from our second row seats that we need to sift through and hopefully touch up some of that audio for y'all. So please be looking out for that.
I guess since this was like our first extended stay at a race, do you have a favorite and least favorite moment from the weekend? I can guess the least favorite.
Favorite and least favorite moment.
For us in particular, obviously, like personal experience.
Oh boy. Do you have one in mind?
Well, I can tell you the least favorite, but I think that's probably yours as well.
Which would be what?
Well, after the race, we were able to get out of Bowman Gray pretty easily.
Oh yeah, the Uber. Yeah, I tried to block that out of my mind.
Yeah, so we got out of the race because we saw Elliott was about to win. It was very clear. So we made a strategy to go to the top of the stands, and when the race was over, we watched the end of it, and then we were like, all right, let's get out of here. We thought we were being smart, and we were, because we were able to get out of the stadium pretty fast compared to the heats. And then, and if a Lyft or Uber just decided not to pick us up for an hour and a half, and we were, hiding at the entrance of the Winston University right there, and just constantly refreshing the Uber app every 5 minutes and putting in requests and seeing the Ubers and Lyft pass us by, and then just decide to not pick us up.
Oh man, it was cold up there.
It was freezing.
That Winston-Salem area, it bites a bit differently. on a cold and dry night. They're a little bit higher in elevation. It's definitely a little bit different than down here in Columbia. We've had our own spell of chills. It wasn't super cold up there, but just again the dryness to the air, the breeze that was in the air, even when it dropped into the 30s at night, that was biting, and it was not too ideal to be standing outside waiting over an hour for an Uber. So I'm hopeful that if they do this again, public transportation, ride shares. I don't know if it was a problem for a lot of other people, but it was definitely a problem for us, and I have no idea why on that particular night it was so difficult. So I'm hopeful that is something that is rectified in general. I guess just one of the big highlights for me for the weekend was just truly figuring out our seats and where they were there in the second row. Got to interact a little bit with drivers because we were so close right there. Got to see up close and personal Bowman. Got to see all drivers walk by. Saw Hamlin, saw Reddick, Bubba, McDowell signed Hamlin fans hat.
Oh,
young
Gilliland.
Or Gilliland
yeah.
It was. That's right. Gilliland signed a young Hamlin fans hat. I just tossed it over. He still signed it for him.
Yeah,
so.
We started a little roll call there with our section. Started a little roll call. Josh Berry was very excited with it.
He was.
We said, chanted Josh Berry like twice, and he turned around and gave us a wave. Gilliland, same thing. Bowman was locked in. Nothing was getting him.
Yeah, he did not.
No, we were pretty
he
loud.
Did not care.
We were pretty loud, and he was laser focused. He was ready to race. So, still very, very cool for that fan. Now probably a David Gilliland or Todd Gilliland. Sorry, I'm thinking of his father. Todd, probably a big Todd Gilliland fan right
Definitely.
now. And of course, there were some. I think they were Josh Berry, like a group of fans that started that whole thing. Anyway. I'm pretty sure I saw the what car did he race last year? The 4. I think I saw some of the 4 car.
Overstock, yeah.
The Overstock merch over there. So very cool of the drivers to be that eager to interact with fans. Apparently, it was very easy to meet drivers, and I don't know how, because I was looking on Twitter, and this guy had like one of the programs from the race, and it was just signed by like 20 drivers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. He had like Daniel Suarez, and we saw Chastain. He was just casually next to us. We were walking around the stadium just taking a look after the modified race, and we're like, what's this line of people? And then we turn our heads, and Ross Chastain was just standing there next to the I think that's like the broadcast booth
up there. Yeah.
Yep. He was standing in front of the elevator staircase to that and just signing. No booth, no signage. It was just him and a Sharpie, which was very cool.
It was.
Both times that we went to a race together, we just happened to look over, and Ross Chastain was there signing autographs. So
it's like, oh, what's up,
it's like,
man?
oh yeah, this guy's just he's just signing cars. That's really cool. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of back in the day. It was Joey Logano when he first started. When I would go to Pocono races, Joey Logano was there like every single time signing. So it was, like I said, very cool, very small gesture for them, and it means a lot, especially for younger fans, which you want to get into the sport. And very, very cool weekend. I really did enjoy that little roll call session. And what would I say would be my favorite? Favorite non-racing moment of the weekend was probably going to that mall with that $10 store in it. I'm a big like nerd interests, and there was a shop called Video Game World or something, and that was a fun little probably like an hour spent in there just looking at old games.
Good little like random mall.
I can't even remember the name of it. I think it was just Winston-Salem Mall or something like that.
Yeah. No, wait. Haynes.
Haynes. It was like the Haynes Mall. Yeah,
that
was. I really liked that mall. It was. I haven't seen a 2-floor mall since I lived in Pennsylvania. So
yeah, right. I was gonna say. There you go.
Yeah, it was really cool. A lot of cool shops in there. Like I said, the Video Game World. I really wish that there was one closer to here. So maybe on the chance that they hear this podcast, there is demand in Columbia, South Carolina for one. I would very much love to spend all of my money there. And the $10 store too, really, really cool. It wasn't just NASCAR stuff. It was a lot of just sports merch. Yeah.
Random sports merch across like all sports. Just racks and racks and little piles. And then so a lot of the stuff was new with tags. It was just Just
older stuff. Yeah.
older stuff this guy found. So.
Yeah, there was a whole hat of NASCAR, or a whole shelf of NASCAR hats from back in the day. Like it had Tony Stewart's 20 car hat, a lot of Jeff Gordon. I think you got a Keselowski shirt from when he was in the,
I did. The number 2
two
car. Yep.
Yeah. Was that Discount or was that Miller, or when he was still the beer?
That was Discount Tire.
It is Discount Tire. So
Discount
so like
Tire.
a 2021-ish era.
Yeah.
But
It's still a nice shirt for $10.
yeah, it was very, very nice.
Yeah, it's new, all with tags and everything.
They had some niche stuff where I wouldn't expect to even think about. I didn't end up buying it, but they had a pit pass lanyard of Tony Stewart in the 2007 season. That I saw that was. It's just something I never thought about. I was like, oh yeah, that is a pretty cool thing to have. A lot of shot glasses, obviously. They had a whole bin of like old stickers from NASCAR. Like there was like a Ryan Newman in the 12 and Jeremy Mayfield in the 19. So very, very cool stores. We did a little shop around too. You went to some cafe with this is like a wine and coffee place, which was interesting.
I was, yeah. I said, and that's just a little bit of the tip of the iceberg. I wanted to try and stop by a few more local places if we had the time. We just didn't make the time to, but getting back up there, I would like to try explore a little bit more. So hopefully we get the chance to at some point.
Yeah, maybe if they bring the Clash back next year, and we can get a little more content out of it. Maybe do a little extended stay.
Exactly. So that's what we'll be looking on to. But again, we have those videos that will be posted, so keep eyes on YouTube for that, and that will be the Northern South Podcast Network, and we have that as our YouTube page at the Northern South. This, of course, is the Palmetto Pit Stop. As we go along, we keep our eyes on Daytona. And Adam, what do you got as we're looking to close things out here?
I was about to say, almost forgot, we are going to be live streaming ourselves for the 500, a little watch along, if you will. Similar to what we did with the UCLA and South Carolina women's game a few months back. So if you want, you want a little company, little chit chat during the race, we're going to be live streaming right here on the YouTube channel. Feel free to come in. We'll be happy to chat with you throughout that. What is hopefully a very exciting crown jewel, very exciting kickoff to the 2025 season. And we'll be talking about the 500 a lot more later on in the week, probably before the Gatorade duels kick off. But just keep in mind, if you want to stop in, we'll be live streaming right here.
Yep. Next time you hear from us is going to be post Super Bowl, and then moving on as we start to get into this NASCAR regular season. And, eventually we'll have a lot more of that to watch, and everyone that's also a baseball fan out there will have plenty of games coming up as well as we start to transition out of the typical football season schedule and get into this part of the year where spring will be here before we know it. So thank you again, everyone, for getting to this point. This has been the Palmetto Pit Stop with our recap of Bowman Gray, the Clash up that way. But we, of course, will be talking it up as they head back down to Florida. And we'll see what the NASCAR season holds this season. Hopefully, it's going to be one filled with some good storylines and just more and more people starting to turn their eyes back to the sport. We shall see, and we'll be there for it. And as always, we'll see you next time.